Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes podcast. My name is Audrey and this is a Nitty Yarny podcast from the southwest of France. Hi, thank you so much for joining me for this new episode. I hope you're doing very well. I have quite a little episode for you. I have 3 projects to share with you, 2 of which are my own designs, which I have just recently published on Ravelry, Payhip and Lovecrafts. And the third one is a test knit that I did for another knitwear designer. So yes, I am going to try to be efficient in this episode, and I hope I will succeed a little bit better than I did on the French version. So yeah, you can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description down below. So if you want to skip anything or to refer to a particular part of the podcast, feel free to look at this. And I also put links to everything that I talk about, as well as links to my social media and my patterns for sale in different platforms. I just realized, as I was saying it, that Lovecrafts is like Lovecraft, and it bugs me intensely now. Because, there's love knitting and love crochet, and sort of the conglomerate of this is Lovecrafts, and so it bugs me. But why not? I'm going to start with a new design that I just released on Ravelry and Payhip, and it is a shawl. And it is a shawl I very much love, and you have seen me knit it when I was starting it. And it is this shawl. This is the Drosera shawl. I do not remember what Drosera means. I assume it's plant. The thing is, sometimes a design has an organic name. It's like the name is there from the start, but sometimes I need to find inspiration for names. And so I'm going to look through plants names, botanical books and websites, or musical things or whatever. And I have a list of names that I potentially want to use for designs. But when I decide that this design is going to have this name and it comes from that list, I don't check again what the name means. So I don't remember. You can Google it if you like. I'm gonna look for it as soon as I finish recording, but right now I don't know. I assume it makes sense, either because of the color or because of the texture or something, but I'm not sure. So maybe the Drosera is like a blue insect or something, and it really has no connection whatsoever, but maybe it does. I don't remember. But in any case, it's that shawl's name. And so, Drosera is a triangular shawl that you start here at the top with a garter tab cast on. Then you increase on the side. You have a garter border, which has some yarn over inside the border so that it's nice and stretchy. And the pattern tells you how to adjust that if necessary, depending on your yarn and tension. And you also have increases here around a stitch at the center, which creates the third point. And so, yay! So, this is a shawl that mixes a bunch of different textures, and it was really fun to design. It was an intuitive process. Basically, when I bought this yarn a year or so ago, I think, I made a rough sketch of what I wanted, but I didn't have the specific textures that I was going to use, and so I just designed them on the go. Is that I cast on my shawl, then I looked for a texture, I looked through my stitch dictionaries, and I modified a few things and kept trying. It meant that I ripped back quite a few times, like this section, for example, I redid it 3 times. But it was really pleasant and kind of natural feeling because I was adjusting to how the shawl was previously, and it was really fun to design. And it meant that when I was finished, I kind of had a little surprise, because I didn't have in my mind what the textures would be from the start. And I do give myself a lot of freedom when I design, usually. It's like, if I'm designing something, even if I decided it will be a certain way, and as I'm working on it, I just feel, no, I want to change a few things. I do that. But I still have a visualization at the start, and here I didn't. And so it was really fun seeing how everything came together. And so I started with this, which is a blend of twisted stitches, as you can see here, and it's mirrored on either side, right? And of a tuck stitch, like brioche. And it's a really, really cool textured, fluffy, squishy thing. It's really fun to knit. It's really easy. Everything in the shawl is intuitive and easy to knit. There are short repeats, very short, and they're very intuitive. So each individual action that you have to do while you knit the shawl is simple. It's like knit, purl, slip, and some sort of twist, but they're very, very basic. It's just that they're put all together in a certain way to make specific textures, but it is very, very accessible. Once I finished this, I made a row of bubbles with the contrasting colors. Now, this is long to knit, so if you're not into bubbles, you can easily skip it. And I know how weird it is that, like, promoting my design, and I keep saying, in case you hate it, in case you think it's absolutely ugly, don't worry. You can modify it. But yeah, if you do like it, yeah, just a fun. I wanted something fun and striking to sort of mark the transition. And then you move on to smoking, some smoking textures in like sort of a zigzaggy pattern on twisted ribbing. In the pattern, you have several video tutorials for a bunch of different techniques. I can't talk. So for the bubbles, for this motif, for the smoking as well, I have specific video tutorials to show you how I do it. And so that way it makes it really beginner friendly. And for the smoking technique, I show you two ways of doing it. Either you put the stitches on a cable and you wrap the yarn around it, or you slip the stitches back and forth between your needles and you bring the yarn forward, backward, and it ends up being the same if you don't want to use a cable needle. Now, I am the person who really doesn't like cable needles. I will avoid using them at all costs. All my cables, I do them without one, unless it's like a huge cable that's like over 8 stitches and it's complicated. Then maybe I will use a cable needle. But for this, I don't use the cable needle because I really don't like it. And it means that I do the slipping all the stitches, and I show you how I do it in the tutorial that comes with the pattern. And it was funny because quite a few of my testers was like, are you really doing it like this? Because it looks like much more trouble and really dumb to do this rather than using the cable needle. But I really hate cable needles. So if you're like me, I show you how I do it, just in case someone is as insane as I am and want to go through the trouble of slipping all the stitches 20 billion times. But yeah, you know, there's gotta be everything in this world, right? And then once you finish this comes this part it starts with a few garter rows. And it was quite funny because like you have all the bubbles, which are not difficult to do, but it takes a while. The smoking takes a while as well to do, even though it's not on that many stitches. The shawl doesn't have more than 500 stitches. 500 stitches is sort of my limit for shawls. I'm like, I don't think I've ever gone over that for a shawl. Maybe I will one day, because I'm starting to get really interested into making massive pieces with funny shapes and all. But yeah, it doesn't have that many stitches, the shawl, so it's manageable. But it still takes a bit of time. And then you have a few rows of garter, and so it's such a relief, right? And then enters this colored, textured motif, which is, I modified it from, I think it's from one of Barbara Walker's Stitch Dictionary. If you don't know, Barbara Walker I'm saying her name really weirdly. Barbara Walker. She wrote a ton of stitch dictionaries, combining stitches, ancient stitches from really a lot of different techniques, and she has quite a few. I own only 2 of hers because they're quite expensive and hard to find. I only have the first and the second one. I think there's 4 totals, or 5 maybe. But in the ones that I have, there is quite a big section on tweed, like slip stitch colorwork. Basically, it consists of, you slip stitches, and sometimes you slip it with the yarn in front, sometimes with the yarn in back. So, you know, sometimes you have a little horizontal thread at the front, and then sometimes you do knit pearls, and it makes this really, really fun tweed heathered effect, which I absolutely loved. And I played a lot with it. I sort of modified the spacing and everything so that the use of color would be what I wanted. And it's really easy to do. Like, you can see the slip stitches here, the knit pearls here. It's really fun and really pleasing to see it being made, because it's like a really basic thing and you're just having a lot of fun. And I really like this type of color work because it's not as obnoxious as color work. I love color work, you know me, but or you don't, but I'm telling you, I love color work. But a lot of people don't want to wear color work because it's a bit too much. And I think this is really cool because it's a way of playing with colors while keeping it, 1, textured, 2, a little bit more, yeah, it has some sort of an optical illusion effect, which is like, are those stripes? Not really. And I find it really fun. And then you have a little bit where you basically work a stockinette portion, right, with some eyelets in a row. And then later, once you have blocked the shawl, you attach the little pom-poms. And again, you don't have to do it if you don't like it. It's like the bubbles. You don't have to. Some of my testers didn't put them in, and you can have examples of how that will look. And basically, the shawl is really easy to modify because, like I said, each stitch repeat is really short and intuitive. So if you remove something, if you want to make a section longer or shorter, it's going to be very easy for you to fall back on track. So, yeah, you shouldn't hesitate to make your own. And then you finish with a 2x2 ribbed border. I really like finishing triangular shawls with ribbed borders. I don't know why. I think it's really, really cool. Yes, so this is the Drosera. And so there are charted and written instructions for the pattern, and like I said, it's really, really easy to customize. I knitted mine with 2 colors, but basically it's a minimum of 2 colors. And you can use 3, you can use even more, because basically each section you can change color if you want. Some of my testers used 3 colors. They used a different color on the bottom part. And yeah, it's a minimum of 2, but you can easily use a bunch of. If you have big leftovers, that can totally work for this shawl. I used fingering weight yarn. I used a blend of merino and mohair. So this is the yarn from Teinture, which is the French indie dyer. And it's, I think it's 56% merino, 42% mohair. Is my math correct? 44% mohair. I do know how to count, do not worry. But yeah, so basically it's a single yarn, which means it's only one thread, ply, and it has a mohair in it. And if you have never tested this type of yarn, I highly recommend that you try them out, because it's a very different feeling than when you're holding, you know, a thread of lace weight silk mohair. This is less hairy. It shows texture in a really good way, but it still has a little bit of fluff and it's very soft. So I really like this type of yarn. And I love using single yarns for shawls because it blocks so easily. If you don't like blocking shawls, I don't like blocking shawls because it's a bit difficult, you know. Sometimes their shapes mean that you need a really specific space and a very large one. And yeah, it's a bit difficult to block a shawl. And if you use yarns that have several plies, like 3 plies especially, you have to, the yarn tends to bounce back together. That's why it's great for a bunch of other things. But if you're trying to spread it and make it stay put, like you want it to be open and drapey and to have straight lines, like in a shawl, it's difficult. Whereas single ply yarn, I soaked it. I put the water out a little bit. I spread it flat on the surface and it just stayed there. Single ply yarns, it really blocks beautifully. It spreads really easily on its own and it stays put. And it formed, you can form straight lines with no pins. I didn't pin this at all, which thankfully, because it's so big. But yeah, it's really, really easy to block single ply shawls. So if you have never tried it and you usually have problems blocking shawls, that can be something to try, perhaps. Yeah. So this is from Drosera, the French indie dyer, and this is a really lovely colorway called Récit d'un raté. So it's like tales of mishap, if you want. And it's like this really lovely taupey thing. It's kind of impossible to describe. Do you have a word like this? Difficult. English is difficult. And the contrasting color is October, which is this beautiful reddish brown, which I love. And yes, so you need 2 skeins of the main color and 1 skein of the contrasting color, or 3 skeins of one color. If you choose to make it 3 colors, it can totally work. You can look through my testers project on Ravelry and you will see a bunch of different versions and how each were used. I really hope you like it and you find it as fun knitting it as I had fun designing it. Like I said, it is not complicated at all. Each texture may look a bit odd, but they are made of really basic stitches that you definitely know how to do. And there are video tutorials for a lot of those stitches, so it should be totally possible to do it, even if you're not extremely comfortable with textured and unique things. Unique things. Sounds like I invented something. No, I did not. But I know it may look a bit daunting to some beginner knitters, but it is not. And it's not complicated. And yeah, so let me put it on so you can see. It's a big shawl, right? It's a big one. I wanted it to be big and cozy. So the yarn I use is sort of wintry with the mohair, but you can totally make it, you know, there are blends of yarn, of wool and linen, which are very interesting because they have like a little textured effect with the linen that doesn't take the dye like the wool. And so it's very interesting yarn to knit with, and I think it would work really well for this shawl if you want a more summery version. So yeah, if I wear it around my neck like this, you can see it basically reaches my belly button. I'm not especially tall nor especially small, short. I am 1.67 meters, I don't know how much that is. I think it's 5'4". I'm not sure. Why do you measure in foot? I always find it so funny because I'm always like picturing myself like looking at my feet and be like, I don't know. I think it's 5'4". I'm not sure. An average size, basically. What's average size? It means nothing. It's just I'm not especially tall nor short. Basically, is what I say. For a French woman, Western European woman, mostly because like totally Spanish, but you know. And yeah, if I wear it over my shoulders, it's like this. I absolutely love it. Like I said, since I designed it on the go, and I didn't know how it would have looked. I didn't test the stitch motifs separately before. When I finished it, I was like, oh, this looks a lot better than I thought it would. And yeah, I really, really am very happy with it. And I hope you will like it too. And if you do, so it's available on Ravelry with 15% off for the release with the code Drosera. Everything is written in the description, as usual. So yes, until next Sunday, you can have it with the release discount on Ravelry if you like. Yeah. This is the first of shawls that are constructed like this that I designed intuitively. There's another one that's in the works that I did a long time ago and that I'm keeping for September. And yeah, I really want to design more of those. And I just have that thing where I just want to, I would like to contact a dyer and tell them, look, I don't care what you do. Send me 2 to 4 colors of whatever. And like the same base, but whatever color combination you want, and I don't care what it is. And I kind of want to do that. And I would like to try the wool and linen thing, but I'm afraid people will think I'm mad. But maybe I will ask dyers I know to do this. Because yeah, I just really like patching things up and making something that looks coherent, but even though it was designed in a completely chaotic manner. But yeah, that is it for Drosera, the shawl. And I have another design that I want to share with you. And it's a design that was originally published last year in a French knitting book from Lena Mouret, which you may know is a very popular French indie dyer. And last year she wrote a book and she contacted a bunch of French indie designers to design things for her book, in her yarn. And so I designed a couple of patterns for this, and now the rights have gone back to me. So I'm very happy to be able to share it with everyone, and especially to share it in English as well, because it was not translated back then. But it is the Carmen cardigan. And ta-da! So it is a top-down raglan cardigan with the sleeves knitted in 2x2 rib with a V-neck, and on the lower body it has this colorwork motif, which is a motif of leaves and branches, which is mirrored. And this is how it looks. On the back, it reverts in the back so that it's mirrored. See here, it sort of goes the other way. And you end with a 2x2 rib. You pick up stitches for the neckband, which is a large neckband knitted in 2x2 rib as well, with buttons. And you finish the sleeves, which you put on hold at the end of the raglan, in 2x2 rib as well. There are long sleeves and they're made so that you can fold them over like this. This is a DK weight cardigan. I knitted this in Lena Mouret's Athena DK base, so it's a pure superwash merino in her salted butter caramel colorway, caramel au beurre salé, and her gooseberry's kiss, I think. Gooseberry, yes. baiser de groseille in the contrasting color. So it's just a really beautiful burgundy, which is really nuanced and lovely. So this cardigan is sticked. It's sticked at the center front, and if you have never sticked before, this is a really beginner-friendly design to do it with. It's when I was test knitting it for the book, quite a few of my testers had never sticked and had never even done color work before, and they all done so wonderfully well. So the thing is, the construction is really simple, and since the color work is on the straight part of the body, and in the pattern I direct you now with the digital version, I was able to include a link to a tutorial on the crochet reinforcement for the stick, which is what I used. Basically, I'm a bit paranoid. So when I stick, if you don't know, sticking is you knit in the round and then you cut in something to open it. So like for a cardigan or for an armholes or for a neckline. And you need to reinforce your knitting so that it doesn't unravel. Now this depends on the type of yarn that you use. If you use a yarn that is very woolly and non-superwash and that grips together, you may not need to do anything, and if you cut through it, it will not unravel. Or you may want to do some reinforcements. I do 2 reinforcements because I'm paranoid. I like to, with a sewing machine, you run over the length of where you're going to cut, basically, so that you, with the sewing machine, you just catch all the stitches together and you trap them together, and that way they can't unravel. You can also do it by hand. It's the same. The idea is just to trap every stitches together and sort of however you can. And I also like to do a crochet reinforcement. So at the edge of the place where you're going to cut, you make a crochet chain which traps the stitches, and it also makes a really neat edge that it's not, you don't have lots of threads going everywhere. And I'm going to open it. And yeah, this is how I stick, because I like to do the both methods. Like this was superwash merino, so obviously it was a bit necessary to do a proper reinforcements, but I don't know. I prefer to do the machine anyway because I'm a bit. But it's silly because I've seen so many people use, for example, Holzgarn super soft yarn, which is a woolly, very rustic, untreated wool that sticks beautifully, and I've seen them just cut. I've seen people just cut through it and it doesn't unravel at all. So I know it works. I just like to overdo things. But yes, and once you have cut, you can fold it inwards and attach the stick to the wrong side of your cardigan so that it doesn't go anywhere. And if you want, so that it's a bit prettier, so this is a closed cardigan, so it doesn't matter, but if you want to wear it open and you want this to be a bit neater, you can sew a ribbon here to hide it. That's a possibility. There are many other, not many other, but there are other stick methods. And if you Google stick, crochet reinforcement stick, or the sandwich stick that, is it Kate Davis that does that? Like there are various methods, and yeah, when I learn something, I like to watch like 25 different tutorials, even if they're exactly the same technique, but just with a little variation, and maybe the person is gonna say something different, and I sort of like I'm like a data learning machine, basically. I just grab everything and then I process it. So yeah, if you look on the internet, you will find a ton of different tutorials if you need to be reassured to see it done in different ways so that you can grasp how it works. But it's really not a complicated thing to do. You just need to do the steps that are required to reinforce it. But the actual making of it is not something difficult. And like I said, I'm gonna put it on, even if it's a bit weird with the thing that I'm wearing, but just to show you. The shape of the cardigan is pretty straightforward, and so it's really easy to modify. You can make it, circus. You can make it longer, shorter. You can, that thing is looking weird. You can make it, you can move the color workband. You can make just one of the two sets if you like. It's supposed to be a pretty long cardigan. I did the sample so that it would fit Pauline, the dyer behind L'Amoureux, because she was the one to pose for the pictures for her book, and she's just a bit shorter than I am, and so for me it reaches like at the middle of my butt. But yeah, it's still pretty nice. And like I said, you can, if you don't like the thing, you can just make it, the sleeves are knitted straight, so if you want you can gather them like they're stretchy with the ribbing, and you can do a bunch of different things with it. And let me close it to show you how it looks, even though it's a bit dumb because I have a cardigan over a cardigan. But it's I have improved the pattern compared to the book, so I translated it to English, obviously, and I also did a few changes. I was able to add a couple sizes because I had more time. When I was designing it for the book, the deadlines were a bit of a catastrophe, but I was able to add a couple sizes, and I did a few changes overall, and I also implemented bust darts, so short row bust darts. So the kind of bust darts that I put in some of my designs whenever possible, it's, if your sweaters or your cardigan ride up at the front like this because they're pulled by your bust. It happens if you have, well, it depends. It's not necessarily for everyone that has a larger bust size. It's mostly a question of how your frame and your bust circumference are sort of conflicting or not. And yeah, sometimes your sweaters and cardigans may like lift at the front, and it's annoying for a lot of people. So basically the darts that I put in, they add length here so that it goes over it. It's a little bit more comfortable, and so that the bottom just stays the same. That is the point of those short rows that are optional, and it's only if you have that problem. But they are in this design, so now it will be a little bit more inclusive for everyone who might need those modifications. And yeah, so this is Carmen, and it is now available. I published it a couple of weeks ago, and it's available in English as well. I know some people are French speaking and still watch the English podcast, so I will say that if you bought the book and you want the digital version, the improved one, just send me a message either on Ravelry or via email. You can find my email on Instagram. Do not spam me, I will not answer you. But yeah, if you have the book and you want the digital version, of course don't buy it again. That is ridiculous. Just send me a message and I will make sure to send it to you. So yeah, that is Carmen, and I hope you like it. And I'm very happy that it's now available for everyone, including the English-speaking people. So yeah, that is the second design that I wanted to show you. Now in the books, there is also a child version. It's a little bit different, but there's a child version because the book was, I had to make two designs in like a sort of duo, and I probably will not publish the child version individually because for several reasons. First, because it would require improvements as well, and the thing is, I don't like designing children knitwear. I'm not interested in it. And I had to do it for the book, and it was like, I'm happy that I've done it once, and it sort of confirms my thoughts. The thing is, I have no child around me at all. There's my neighbors, but they're teens now, sort of. I don't know, when are you a teen nowadays? But it sounded so bad. But and I feel like it's a bit too abstract to design something if I have no connection to it whatsoever. I don't know. Well, I can work on it, obviously, but something is lacking, you know, because when I'm designing a woman's garment, at least I know I'm designing something that I would like and that I would wear. And so I'm thinking, there's at least one person in the universe who agrees with the concept of this. That is me. But if I'm designing for a child, I have no child. I am not a child. I know no child. And so I don't know. I make it sound like children are such an obscure thing, like really different, non-finished humans, and they're so weird and estranged. But that's not what I mean. It's just that I feel really disconnected to the needs and whatever people who knit for children want. And so I really have no compelling to do it. And also, it bugs me a little bit that people always assume that when you are knitting, you will knit for children or babies, or you will design when you're a designer. And it happens to me on a very regular basis. I would say like 3 times a month, I have at least someone, either one of you, asking or sometimes demanding, which is much less pleasant, a children's garment. Like, I'm gonna release a pattern and someone is gonna say, where is the children's version? And I'm gonna be like, no. No. Or sometimes it's brands that contact me and that if you don't want to listen to my rant, just look in the description and find the next section and skip this. But yeah, sometimes it's brands. It happened quite a few times that a brand contacts me because they're interested in collaborating, and so we exchange and see what it is that the collaboration would be about. And yeah, and they're like, we want to make a collection for children. I'm like, it bothers me because it, like, you contacted me, but you didn't look at my work at all. Like, I'm a woman of principles. Can you at least pretend that you actually looked at my things before you contacted me? Just pretend, you know? I don't care if it's false. Just make an effort lying to me and that would be fine. But yes, and it's just, it icks me a bit that people, like, I don't know why people assume that because you're knitting and because why is this like light acting up like this? Yeah, it's just because you're knitting and just because you're a knitwear designer doesn't mean that you necessarily will make garments for children's or babies or baby accessories and things like this. And it's sort of, it's to the point where I'm telling you, this is very often. If you're a knitwear designer and you're watching this, can you tell me if this happens to you too, or if I'm just cursed for some reason? Because it's to the point where I'm like, maybe one day I will want to design something for a child or a baby, and I won't, because out of spite. So yeah, no, I'm not a child myself, so I do not act like this anymore. Try to. But yes, I'm joking, obviously. But it is like kind of weird. Like, just don't assume that I'm not interested. And like I said, if I don't have the will to do it, I don't see the point. And on top of that, they don't sell well. And I know this from fellow designers who are not specialized. You know, some designers are specialized in making this, and it's great. And there are so many lovely, cute things. Like, it's adorable. So, yeah, but I know that when it's not something that you do, it's not necessarily something that sells well. Not that I only make designs that I know will sell, because that's not true. Quite the opposite. But in theory and in fact, but yeah, there's no personal incentive, there's no logical incentive either were I to be a heartless businesswoman. It is not a good idea either. So yeah, which is why I don't want to publish individually the child version of Carmen, because like I said, it's a bit different and I'd have to work on it quite a lot. And like I said, I feel disconnected to it. I don't know that I can make it as good as I want it to be. And it will make a precedent because now when people assume that I have to make child or baby patterns, at least I can say I don't do this and be like, no. But if there is one, then I know that it will make a precedent and I don't want it. But yeah, like if you cannot live, if you've seen it on social media and you cannot live without it, first of all, calm down. Second of all, we can figure something out. But yeah, I don't think that it's really necessary. I did want to say that if you are looking for adorable children's garment, there is a designer and it's Emma Haywood. Hold on, because I have her page here. Yes, Haywood, Heywood. She makes adorable sweaters with intarsia on it. So she has like a ton of them, and there's like a bunch of different things, like all the animals, all the insects, all the dinosaurs and cute things and letters as well and things. There's one with a little mountain with a little face and it's adorable. So yeah, in case you are looking for very cute children's garment and you don't know Emma Haywood, that's really cute what she does. And there's a ton of garments with intarsia for kids. But yeah, I like hers especially. So yeah, that was my little rant on designing for children. And yeah, so moving on to the last project I wanted to show you, and it is the top that I am wearing, and it is a pattern I test knitting for Kasia Viorella. I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering that. She is a Swedish independent designer, and so I was looking for a top like this, like a wrapped t-shirt, and I was looking to buy one ready-made, but I couldn't find what I wanted. Then I was looking for a design that's like I can knit it, and I couldn't, I didn't find exactly what I wanted either, but I didn't want to design one myself. And right at the moment where I was looking for this, I saw a call for testers for this. And so I applied and got very luckily to test it. And so this is the Eden wrap cardigan / top thingy. And it's an all over brioche wrapped top. And it was really fun to work. It's a really simple construction. So you basically, so it opens, right? Like this. It's like a completely open thing. You cast on stitches here, then you do a bunch of increases here, which sort of creates a slant. Then once you have the desired width, you knit straight all the way over until here at the back. Then you do the same for the other side. Once you have done both fronts, you join everything at the back here, and then you knit downwards. You do a few decreases in the backs to sort of cinch it. Once you have finished the back, you leave the stitches on hold for the back, and you cast on stitches to work the waistband. So it's in brioche as well, with some slipped stitches. You work your waistband. Then you have your stitches put on hold on the back, and you pick up stitches on the fronts on both sides. And This is perhaps the only tricky part of the pattern. It's not complicated, it's just that you pick up stitches without knitting them. So you just grab the stitches, right? And you're grabbing them from a place where you were doing double brioche increases, and so I had a bit of a trouble figuring out where to pick up so that it would be neat enough, which was not necessary to trouble myself, because basically what you do later is that you take your waistband, you attach it here, and you know, if you have done some shawls where you have a border that is knitted sideways at the end, it's sort of the same idea. Basically, you're going to attach it, and you have your stitches all around here, right? You attach your waistband, and you're gonna go back and forth, and every time you reach this side, you're gonna do a decrease. So that's what you do. You go there and you decrease, you decrease, you decrease. This attach the waistband all around, and once you've reached the other end, well, you continue with the other side of the waistband. And basically, as you decrease, it sort of hides the place where you picked up the stitches, so it's very neat. And it was really fun to work. And then you wrap it all around. And before the waistband, I know you seam it. I don't know if I've said, but you make a seam here at the sides. And yes, so I kind of have to rearrange it when I put it on. But I really liked working on it. It was really fun. The waistband construction is really fun. It's also quite adaptable. There is 2 waist option. So if you want to change the waist circumference, you can pick up more stitches, and it's all explained in the pattern. It's very clear. And you can also make it longer. If you don't want it to be like at the waist, you can totally make it longer, because you basically knit until the length that you want, so you can keep trying it on as you go, basically, and stop or continue however you want. And yes, I'm very happy with it. It's exactly what I wanted. And yeah, so it's all over brioche. And the thing with brioche with me is that I don't mind it, but for me, it's pretty much a basic stitch, kind of like stockinette or garter, except that it has the disadvantage that it uses more yarn. And so I don't tend to go for brioche. I'm not attracted to it as much as some people. I like it. I like the color play that you can do with it, but I find it's squishy, it's nice, but I find it a bit flimsy a lot of times for my taste, too flimsy for my taste. So that's why I'm not hyped on brioche. But I kind of wanted to. The thing is, you can do very different things in brioche knitting, and so I wanted to sort of find a way that would work for me. And I already know I really love using tuck stitches, which is brioche. So brioche is only tuck stitches everywhere, right? You can do brioche 2 different ways. One of them is the traditional brioche. The other one is something that is called, it's a ribbing. I forgot the name of it. But basically, when you do brioche, so you slip a stitch and yarn over it. And you can also achieve the same effect by knit one below. And basically, if you knit one below, you're pulling the stitch from below as if you had slipped it, and you're dropping the stitch that you had knitted on it, so it makes the yarn over. So it's the same result. I forgot the name that it has, this technique. Yeah, it's the same result. And it's just some people prefer to do it the other way. I tried both, and both are similar for me. I don't mind either. And if you do this all over the fabric, this is what creates what people call brioche. And but the stitch itself, a tuck stitch, you can use it with other sort of textures. And like this is exactly what's here, for example. And this, I know that I love mixing tuck stitches with other things. So that's one part of brioche that I like. And when I saw the call for testers and that the designer had knitted it in linen, I wondered how brioche would feel in a plant-based yarn, because I had never tried it. And I was curious, so yes, I was happy to try it. And I used Fancy Bohème, which is a French yarn. It's a blend of cotton and linen, which I talked about in the previous episode. And so it's a really dense, pure plant fiber with a really good definition and structure and a bit of drape. And I really like it because it's quite structured and it has a completely different feel than brioche with wool. Brioche with wool is so squishy, and like I said, it's like really, I find it flimsy, basically that's the term. And this does not give me the same effect at all. This has structure, this has like a really nice texture. It's still soft and sort of plump, but it's still like it's pretty dense, and I very much like that. So yay, brioche in plant fibers is a yay from me. And yeah, I really like the result. If you want to knit this top in a dense yarn like this one, we found with the testers that basically the designer used a pure linen, if I'm not mistaken, and basically if you're using a very light drapey yarn, it works fine. But my yarn was quite a bit more dense, so I have a more structured effect perhaps, which I really love. It's still soft and airy and thing, but it's not as flowy perhaps as some other versions. But I found that with such a dense yarn I had to use a bit more meterage, and the designer adjusted everything so that it should be okay. But yeah, just keep in mind that if you are using a yarn that is not as flowy, you might need a bit more yardage for the same measurements basically. So yeah, this is the Eden top. So it's available already. The designer published it at the end of June, so here it is. And I'm really happy to have the top that I wanted because it's exactly this. And yeah, I think that is it. I think I've said everything about this knit and about all my projects that I wanted to show you. So yeah, this was all finished projects. I'm currently working on the mystery cal for this year, so I cannot show you this. So this is why I'm not showing any works in progress this time. But I will see you again in a couple of weeks with hopefully interesting works in progress. I am sure because I am again casting on a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a lovely rest of the day, have a lovely evening, whatever applies. Bye!